not saying to you you can't buy gifts, but I'm saying stay within your means, stay within your budget. Make it a glorious thing where you can give. I don't want gifts from Visa. I don't want gifts from MasterCard. I just want, basically, to be loved, to be able to love my kids, to be able to love my grandkids, and to know that they are forever and always welcome in my home. So make a point. Don't go over budget. Sit down, make a plan, follow the plan, and recognize that cookies baked from grandma's heart are every bit as important to a grandchild. They recognize it far more than we do. I speak from my heart, church. Let Christmas be what Christmas was designed to be. Amen?
Amen. I'm going to try to keep the message a little shorter today. Again, the key word is probably try. So that everybody can get out and get home and get rested up and be back for this evening. But what I wanted to do was sort of make an extension of my last week's message. You know, last week I finished off and I was teaching on attitude and how attitude will determine how you see life. I had mentioned that it was the wrong attitude that ended up causing me to dislike Christmas, even though it was the time that we were celebrating the birth of my Savior. Now I knew that this is what it meant, I knew that this is what we were doing, and yet it seemed like every year at Christmas, by the time Christmas came, I wanted to sleep. I didn't want to get up, I didn't want to do it, I just wanted to sleep and get through it so we could say it's over. You know, the stress, the burden, the obligatory gifts that had to be bought, the running around that had to be done, the trying to please everybody. It came to a point where Christmas became much more of a burden than a joy. And I hadn't really realized, I guess, how many people felt that way about Christmas. After the service, throughout the week, I've had a lot of people from the church that says, you know, I thought you were talking about me. I thought you were talking straight to me. Well, that's exactly what we've always felt like. So why do we end up putting that type of pressure on ourselves when we are trying to celebrate the birth of the Lord Jesus Christ? Now again, as Pastor Jerry mentioned earlier, it's not the buying the gifts, it's not, you know, those things aren't wrong. But the focus is still supposed to be Jesus. God's love for humanity, God's love for us, which was why He sent His Son to take our place, which was why He sent His Son so that we could be set free from sin, from sickness, from disease, so that we could be set free from anything that was against His kingdom. And that's the focus of Christmas, Jesus. You know, we see it now, it's a nice little cliche that we often put in the shop windows, like, Jesus is the reason for the season. Well, that really is the truth of the matter. Jesus is the reason for the season. Now, as we get together for family gatherings, if we're all stressed out, if we're all busy, it's all got to be this, it's all got to be that, we aren't able to be the ambassadors for Christ that God has called us to be. But when we can walk in and we can be enjoying the season, we can be relaxed, we can have a time of fellowship, we can get together and enjoy the time, then people end up seeing Christ in us because they see that this is something that means something to us. So I just felt I was going to carry on a little bit more because it seemed to have touched a note on so many people about last time. Well, Christmas has often become the time of stress and grief instead of the time where we can joyously celebrate our Savior's birth. Christmas is, and I've read the statistics on it, but you know, Christmas is one of the times where the suicide rates increase. In fact, one of the highest suicide rates all year is right at Christmas time. People feel cut out. They feel left out. People feel like, you know, we're not part of it. We don't have. And yet we as Christians who are supposed to have answers, are so busy wrapped up playing Christian that we don't have time to bring answers to the world at that time. And so people without hope, people that think you can't change, end up committing suicide. People is a time where more people hit depression than any other time. Christmas is a time where more people hit depression than any other time of the year. Also, they find out we can't keep up with everything. And also the whole complaint becomes, like, when Christmas has become such a time of consumerism. It's also, well, who's doing it? If Christmas is a time of consumerism in your house, who's doing it? You are. You're bringing it in. You're allowing it. You're the only one that's going to be able to stop it. But the good news of the gospel is that we do not have to continue in this way. We can take control over, and we can change our attitude so that Christmas no longer becomes a time of grief. It no longer becomes a time of stress. It no longer becomes the time where we end up getting so wound up that we're just waiting for it to get over. We can change our attitudes. And that was the message I had last week, that we can change our attitude, and it will change the way we view, it will change the way we end up experiencing this season. When we change one, or make just one little change in us. Now, when we change our attitude, we will change the way that we feel about things. Have you ever noticed that? I know one of the things that struck me most when we had the marriage counseling and the marriage seminar in church, and they made this step, or they made the case about where the fellow was sitting on a bus, and there's another man on the bus, and all the people were on the bus. But this one man was on the bus with two of the most unruly children that anybody had ever seen. And these kids are running around, and they were screaming, and they were climbing over the seats, and they were doing all of this stuff, and all of the other patrons on the bus were just like, okay, already, this is enough. And finally, the fellow that was sitting closest to this man was the one that he was sort of elected by everybody's eye contact, that he was elected to say something. So he decides to open his mouth and make comment about these children that are so unruly. And he mentions to the man, he says, excuse me, sir. He says, can't you do something with your children? And he looks at them, the man at the window that's been staring out the window, ignoring his kids. He looks at him and says, oh, I'm so sorry. He says, their mother just died, and we're on our way home. He says, everything changed in the bus. Nothing had changed. The kids were still acting up. The kids were still crying. The kids were still screaming. But also everybody was viewing it in a different way. You know, just changing the way you view things can change how you feel about things. Just changing your attitude by how you view something, changing your attitude just a little bit, can change exactly how everything else looks. Oh, Pastor, that sounds so simple. It is, but it's the most difficult thing you're ever going to learn to do. So when we change the way we feel about, or when we change the way we feel about things, then we discover that the way things turn out also changes. When we start feeling different about other things, we find out those things change around us. Now, I know this sounds rather simplistic, but what we allow to consume our thoughts will determine our life experiences. What we allow ourselves to dwell on will determine what happens to us. If we walk into life with a defeatist attitude, you're going to find out that you're defeated before you even get started. If you walk into life expecting everybody to be against you, you're going to find 100 people that are against you on the first day. But if you walk into life believing that the favor of God rests upon you and that everybody loves you, you're going to find people are attracted to you. Now this sounds simplistic, and I know we've heard a lot of this stuff before, and people say, oh yeah, that's also wonderful. But you know, Solomon wrote in book of Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23, he says, keep thy